So very warm welcome to our session today. And our topic is generous nature. And this is a subject that, of course, we've covered a lot in generosity. What it means to be generous with other people, what it means to be generous with the self, and what is the essence, what is it that allows us to actually be generous. And so I thought today it would be interesting to explore the whole aspect that's behind generosity or before generosity, which the key for that in those words is the being generous. So you can act generous or you can be generous. And if both are together, then of course that's the best thing. But sometimes the acting generous is separate from the being generous. And sometimes we can act generous but feel the sense of obligation or feel like we've been put into a corner and so we have to do that. Otherwise, the consequences are worse than the effort it takes to be to act generously. And so there's a whole world really in the being, in what allows us to be, what we are experiencing, what is the essence, what is it that's going on within us that actually brings out the generosity in a natural way. And so the thing is that we all appreciate and deeply, actually, I think, enjoy being generous. It's something that naturally gives the return and the fruit that is very sweet. When it's true generosity, of course, there's the mixed generosity where we're expecting a return, and that can be even more painful when it doesn't come. So maybe someone has spent their time and energy giving up other things to have gone out of their way to do something, which might be with a certain person in mind. And then that person, criticizes or complains, and then what happens? So the generosity with which we've put in a lot of the energy and time and effort and attention maybe gets ruined. But it's ruined not because we put that in, but maybe because there was just a little bit of mixture of wanting something from the subject of our generosity. So from the person for whom we're doing something. And so it's when it comes with even just a little price tag of, okay, well, I want you to notice that this is what I've done for you. And so I think it's that ruins our experience of generosity, or shall we say limits it. Because then if someone does appreciate, okay, well, it goes well, and they may appreciate it 9 times, but one time they either forget or they were upset about something and complained. And then that's where we maybe notice that actually my generosity was not completely free or clean. And so there's something there that in a sense is missing, which is why I feel like I need some return from a specific person or group of people or situation or whatever. Because in fact, the spirit of generosity, I feel, comes from knowing that the return will come in one way or another, sooner or later. If not today, then tomorrow. If not tomorrow, after 10 years. If not in this birth, in the next birth. But one thing for sure is that no effort goes to waste, and you will receive your due return. It may not be from the person whom you expect it to be from. It may not be from the situation, the people, the group. You may not get the recognition that you expect and would like. No. But whatever is there has been done with a true heart. The return of that is very, very powerful and very, very sweet. And I believe is completely guaranteed. And so there's actually no need to kind of wait for it or expect it from someone. No. Because maybe they can give a little bit, but actually that's not the real return. No. The real return is something much bigger. How much is your generous heart worth? Can anyone really give a return for that? No. Just think about the people to whom you feel grateful for, what you've learned from them, what you've received. And I mean, there's that sense that, well, nothing I can do actually will be enough to thank. And actually, we don't even need to think like that. I can't remember if I shared it recently, but I realized something about this whole thing of gratitude. That when and of course it's all connected with the ability to be generous, but is that sense of gratitude. When someone has been generous towards me and I've received that, and I have that sense of gratitude. But I feel that it's very important to separate gratitude from a sense that I owe something to someone. Because if I feel that about someone, then I'm going to apply the same thing about when I'm generous to someone and they are grateful towards me, then I will believe that they owe me something. And so to be able to separate gratitude from that sense of obligation or owing, that indebtedness. So when we're grateful to someone, it does not mean that we are indebted to them. So if there is that sense that, oh, well, they were so kind and so generous to me, so I have to do this, even if it goes against my principles, even if it goes against being kind to the self. And if there is that sense of obligation, then there's something that's mixed in there. That is, in a sense, limiting that gratitude. So when I have that sense of gratitude, the thing that comes from my heart is blessings. And that is much, much more powerful, that wishing well, that generosity towards a person. And often if they have been generous to me, then it's very easy, to have blessings and then really blessings emerge. And that's the gratitude, really, is that I wish you well. But in a sense, beyond that, I know that this person will receive the full return of their generosity. How can I give that? In a sense, it's a natural machinery that happens. And sometimes we call that karma, sometimes we call that the fruit of your actions. And so it's not up to me to give someone the fruit of their actions. So I can offer something that is from within me, that I have, that I wish to, that comes from my heart, that comes in the form of blessings and gratitude. But it needs to come from the heart, because otherwise it'll be something that is not really blessings, is not really generosity. So anyway, there are a few interesting things about, this thing of what is it, what's going on behind the scenes, in a sense, for me to be able to be generous, to have that spirit of generosity, which is like, it's a little bit like abundance, where there's not that sense of being, that it's of fear of something running out, which could be time, it could be energy, it could be resources, it could be really anything. It could be capabilities, whatever it is. It could be physical things, and there's so many stories about, how the it often happens even in terms of contributions, and sometimes we find this also within the meditation centers, as you might know, that it all runs based on contributions. And very often it's been found that for certain programs, like big events that happen, exactly the amount that was spent for that event, that was the amount of contributions that came in. And this is, I mean, it's such a beautiful thing to know that when the intentions are clean, when there's the clarity in what is being done, when there's attention to, to keeping things on track, even in terms of the not wasting, making sure that everything's checked and, and done in the way that is of benefit for everyone, then somehow the needs are fulfilled. And so the spirit of abundance, is basically that the needs will be fulfilled, that there will be enough to fulfill everyone's needs. And so, in terms of, of actually what's going on, I was thinking that, when I have a generous attitude, so it could be that I'm connecting with people with whom I have difficulty in understanding, or they have difficulty in understanding me, and maybe there's a lot of conflict or misunderstanding, miscommunication. And so what often happens is that our heart becomes small, shrinks in a way, in terms of seeing maybe that they definitely have some nasty motive behind what they did or said, or that they have some, what do you call it, conspiracy behind, what they're offering even. And so often that maybe there is something that's going on, but to be able to give the benefit of the doubt and be generous in the evaluation of what's happening, in a sense to not have that prejudice. So one thing is to judge, and we need to learn how to judge very accurately, but that's very different from prejudice. So I might be prejudiced against this person, in the sense I might be biased, that even a little thing that they say, I will decide that, okay, they said that because they want to put me down. And so maybe I didn't even hear the whole thing properly, but I already decided. And so that's a prejudice, a prejudgment, an assumption. And so I feel that the spirit of generosity, the being, the nature of generosity, is where I'm able to keep my heart big, even in those situations. So what that means is that I feel strong enough to not, in a sense, to not take the sorrow, not take the hurt that may or may not be coming to me from this person or from this situation, whatever it is. Because only then can I see beyond what's happening to me, what I believe is happening to me. No. So I can consider, I can include the other person's beingness in my thinking, in my behavior. And so that means that I maybe see what's going on. I maybe see the insecurity that they're feeling, which is why they blurted out something that maybe they didn't even mean. So it's not about excusing them, but it's about seeing something that will help me stay in that state where my heart remains big. Because there's nothing worse than feeling, where you've shrunk and somehow you're not able to kind of feel even yourself. And that's the worst thing, actually, is that when the heart shrinks, not only do we not feel what's going on for the other person, but we don't even feel anything what's going on for ourselves. It's just that kind of self defense and protection that, the survival, basically, we go into. And when we go into survival mode, then all those mechanisms that we might have developed in survival mode will come out, which could be from feeling a victim to lashing out, whatever it is. And so the nature of generosity is basically about taking care of my heart in such a way that it stays big and generous and abundant. And then, I mean, what I find is very useful as well is to wish for the best outcome. So it might be like recently, I had a couple of meetings which, I knew that they were not going to be that easy in terms of the communication, in terms of expressing something. But somehow inside, I decided that one way that I'm going to make it easier for myself, and so this was generosity towards myself, was actually to wish for the best outcome of the meeting. And not just the best outcome for me, but the best outcome for each person involved. And so how that's going to happen, the details, the technicalities, in a sense, I don't need to worry about that, but I need to be there in my best form, which is to have my heart fully expanded, and fully present and able to listen. And that's the thing, is that being generous is about listening. I think listening very much to the self, and also being able to listen to the hearts of other people rather than maybe some sharp or nasty comment, or sometimes slippery thing that is backhanded, something that goes on, which maybe looks nice but is actually rather sharp. And so often there's all of these things involved. And I know for myself is that often that kind of thing would immediately mean that I just shut down, and I withdraw, and I'm just not there for you, and whilst that might be some sort of a protection, but it's very much a survival mode, and it didn't get me anywhere really, other than maybe not getting more hurt, damage control and all of that. But what I find is much more, in a sense, something that gives me that dignity to express who I am. And the clarity to be able to do that is when I'm there with that generosity of spirit. Because somehow in the giving, in a sense, the offering, rather, not even giving, but it's offering. And then whether someone takes it or not, it's really not such an issue. That if you've prepared a wonderful meal and you think it's really nice, but someone says, no, I just want to eat fruit today, So one thing is to offer, but the other thing is to, in a sense, impose and no, you have to because I've made this. And so maybe they'll have it tomorrow and then they'll really enjoy it and then they'll really give you blessings. But if you force it on them, they eat it just to please you. Maybe they have a stomach ache and then what kind of blessings are they going to give you? No. And so to be generous actually means to allow that person to choose, freely choose. And that's so freeing, because it's the selfishness in there is when I want you to do what I want so that I can feel okay about myself, whether it's convenient for you or not. And so that is the selfishness, shall we say, which could look like generosity because see, I've made such a nice meal, and so how come you're not wanting it? And so it's very much, I think, inside choosing kindness over cruelty. And this is a very strong word, cruelty. But actually, I was thinking that in fact, it's actually the opposite of generosity. Maybe it's the opposite of kindness, but it's also the opposite of generosity. And I mean, cruelty is basically when we're purposely or through some negligence causing someone to suffer, and this includes the self. So that might mean that I continue to think and think and think, or I continue to internalize something, I take things personally, and so I'm causing myself to suffer, even though I know that if I continue to think about this, I'm going to make myself weak and not able to deal with the things that I need to deal with. But I keep doing it. And so that is real cruelty, actually. It's real cruelty to the self. And we might feel, oh, but I can't help it. But I'm not so sure about that. In the sense that there are, I know for myself is that if I am determined enough and if I see the damage clearly enough, then I will definitely push myself. It's a little bit like when there's a child and you know that they are walking into danger, you will grab them and they may scream and shout, but you will grab them and take them out of danger. And so it's a little bit like that for the self in those particular moments, which can be sometimes more extreme moments, where we find that we're doing things more and more repeatedly and more intensely that are damaging to the self. And this is cruelty to the self. And so in the opposite, am I able to be generous? No, which could be that I'm saying no to certain things. It could be I'm saying no to certain people or to certain situations. And the difference between being selfish and being kind to the self. So being kind to the self is when I am fulfilling a need that I recognize in the self, which if I don't fulfill that need, I will cause damage to the self, which I'm then not able to handle. And then someone else needs to be generous to me or to be kind to me or to pull me out of the trouble. And so whereas selfishness is when I cross a certain line in the kindness to myself, which then it goes into indulgence, it goes into an excess, where it's something that, okay, I know that my energy is needed somewhere else, but I either ignore that or I, in a sense, I decide that I don't want to do that. And in a sense, if I'm deciding consciously, then at least it's a decision, and that's clear. And I may be aware of what I'm choosing. And as I know that I receive the fruit of the, the actions that are generous, in the same way I receive the fruit of the actions that are selfish. And so only you can decide whether something that you are doing is selfish, or something that you are doing is kindness towards the self. And other people may judge you, may, in a sense, decide that, oh, this person is always selfish. They're always sitting there meditating when I need their time and attention, for example. Or they're always thinking about only themselves. But that is their opinion. And you can check, is there any truth in that? But only you can decide. Sometimes we might have some good friends who will give us a signal, who will give us an indication that, look, when you behave in this way, this is what I'm feeling. Is it like that for you? And so because you trust this friend, or you know that their intentions are for the best for you, then maybe you listen to that. But it's very different from people criticizing or making comments, or and that is something that probably we need a test that each person, especially who chooses to meditate or chooses to spend time with the self, or to give priority to becoming strong, probably each person who does that will have to face that test, and has probably had to face it. But that's okay, because I find anyways that maybe I was too much in the extreme of, oh no, I have to be kind, I have to give everyone my time, everyone my energy, and basically have nothing left for myself to really be okay with myself. And so going from that extreme to saying, okay, look, no to everything. Now, one by one, I'm going to see what I'm saying yes to. and so maybe that's another extreme, but in a sense, maybe we need to go to these extremes to know what is the balance, what is the center point, so that we can consciously choose that, and be satisfied with our choices as well. So these were some thoughts, and I want to invite you to share anything that you've been thinking, maybe, or anything that's come up in your mind, as we look at this, explore this subject of being generous, and so just emphasizing that it is about the beingness, rather than what the form that generosity takes. And there's many other aspects that are behind the scenes in the generosity. So if anyone would like to share something, please do switch on your mic, and just to remind you that this is being recorded. And so if you're happy with that, then please do feel free, or put in the chat. Maybe you have already, let's see. So yes, okay. Anything that you want to share, and we'll have the time for meditation and a few other thoughts as well. So please. Looking at this whole thing of what it means really to be generous behind the acts. Yes, please. I don't know who RMHD is. Did you want to say something?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I will put the mute. Okay. Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes. It came to my mind a word that it used to said my father. This is no muerdas la mano de tu patrón nunca que te da de comer. This
Okay.
means don't beat
Bite the hand.
the hand of the landlord who is giving your to the food or to giving the.
Yes.
But in fact, with my father, I have serial arguments between us because I don't think so. I think that you should tell, okay, to your landlord, okay, I don't think that I should accept all the things that you are giving, for example, in this sense, no? Because
Mm.
I think there is necessary. In fact, I love this way of generosity that you mentioned. That is not that you give something to because it's an exchange, of course, because you give, but you give because you feel that is important as well in the work. You give the money or whatever, but you should as well look for the work or work in something that you are agree to do
Mm.
and that you are happy to do. If you are doing something because the other is paying, I don't know, that is not or honest, for example, honest, or for example, something that you are is it going with your principle. It's not going with. It's better that you give up, from my point of view.
Mm.
That although this is something as well with the work and as well with generosity, because it's connected, I think, not only as well, for example, the charity, another experience that I have. Yeah, I came here more than 20 years ago because I married an Italian, you know. My mother-in-law, she is she is practicing charity a lot. And when we used to go with the car, for example, she used to go give coins and this stuff. And I was very bad judging her. But then, fortunately, now in this period, I learned that this way to give charity is a Romance habit from more than 2,000 years ago, that they have like a room, a place there in Rome, in the center, the historical center, when the people who need it, they used to go there. And the government at that time just thought in the poor people. And I was very critic because I saw, oh, this you are giving these things, and you are not giving the you are giving price, you can say, but no values. Okay, that was my criticism. You are
So,
giving money.
okay. So you're saying, Sandra, just to keep it in essence, that the generosity of spirit is to in a sense see the value of what someone's doing rather than criticizing.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Thank you. Thank
And
you so much.
sorry,
Yeah.
I extended.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Great. Great. Anna, did you want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to say how much I now, looking back, appreciate lots of acts of generosity when I left Argentina, I went to study abroad, and people that didn't know my family, where I came from. It wasn't a matter of class or of snobism or of anything, that they gave so generously, hospitality and friendliness and support. Even if I didn't really need it, I was quite balanced and I was okay. but the introduction to another culture was very important. But I could never give back anything to those people. And as you were saying before, it doesn't matter because the wheel goes around. And what I do now is I take that example and I give the same to young people that come, or offer hospitality to whoever I think, would really benefit. And that's what I have been doing as a grown up. And I think that I appreciated what you said. It doesn't have to be an exchange of generosity, because that's but it's the example, and when it's being generous rather than,
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to what you said, that there are many things behind, still to be talked about, behind the scenes of generosity. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, Radha.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. I see a couple of comments of Luke. I think that before being generous to others, we need to be generous and kind to ourselves. That this is possible by recognizing our needs, emotions, and different parts of ourselves and express them in the best possible way. And then Irina, 2 questions. Is it a good intention to try to help others, very close people, to become generous? Does it work? And second question, you are generous and thus you are cruel to yourself. Is this what is called sacrifice? Or when you are really generous, you cannot harm yourself? Yeah, they're very good questions, and I will try to answer them. But I think basically we cannot make anyone be anything, in the sense that we can try to help people be generous. Absolutely, it's a question of if they, in a sense, don't become generous, what's my response? Do I get tired and fed up with my efforts, or am I able to, in a sense, continue what I'm doing? Because the way to help others become generous is by being generous, which has a whole range of meaning. No, it doesn't always mean saying yes and being soft and gentle. It could be being quite strong and tough, and so whatever it is. And I think the whole thing of sacrifice is quite a big subject, really. And it's a very beautiful thing, sacrifice. I think it needs to be understood in the balance, though, again. Is that what am I sacrificing, actually? What is it that I'm letting go of? And if it's something like ego, if it's something like my limited desires, for someone to do something or for me to get something, then that's a perfectly fine thing to sacrifice. But if I'm sacrificing my dignity, if I'm sacrificing my strength, if I'm sacrificing my self-respect, then it's something that I would really question about whether it is generous or whether there's some intention, some need there that, in a sense, and that ends up what we call corruption, that I let go of some value so that I can get something in the name of generosity, for example. So I think it's a question of saying asking what am I sacrificing? And so yes, generosity is not in exchange. And in true charity, there's no notion of the giver, receiver, or donation. Yes, that's very beautiful. Thank you. In fact, there's at least in India, there's a saying that the incognito donation is the most elevated act of charity. So exactly that is that, they say, put it in the Ganges and let it flow away. So do your, very beautiful act, and then even you forget about it. And so that's the thing. So yes, so thank you. I don't know if anyone else would like to share anything before we come into the meditation. Aldous?
Yes, Om Shanti was just a note of appreciation for the way that the topic of generosity was picked up, as it gives a different way of thinking about it. And what touched here very much is, as I was listening to what you shared, is the underneath trust. That word came up for me. That it is not, as Oswald mentioned, not to give as in an exchange, as if it's a business model, but it is giving as in it is our true nature who is giving. It's just part of who we are in essence, givers. And then according to the spiritual law, sooner or later, that which has been given will also be returned. There is no doubt in that. So while listening to you, I became more conscious of that, the spiritual law behind it, and the challenges with it, that sometimes we have expectations or desires, but in fact, that what we get doesn't need to come from that same person. And once we understand that, it also sets ourselves free, because we are not demanding it from someone. And it also sets the other one free, because we are not pulling them continuously in our mind, in our emotions, in our thoughts. And in a way, I think that is one of the biggest acts of generosity, setting ourselves free, but also setting others free. So yeah, that came up. And also what was enjoyable was wishing for the best outcome for all. So I'm gonna practice with that today. Thank you for that reminder. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Aldous. Thank you. Yes. So, please.
Yes, sorry. Yes, no, just to say that I share everything that was just said. And yeah, I agree with Luca that the first thing is really to be generous with ourselves, and be aware of our needs in order to be able to bring something to other people in the most honest way, without expectation, without. I had a problem with the word sacrifice, because I think generosity calls for for us to develop the sense of connection, of togetherness, of a family. If one has such a conscious that we are all a human being, and with our weaknesses and our strengths, and that we all try our best to live together and to develop good relationships between one another, then being generous becomes a contribution to the benefit of all, to the general good. This has, a direct application in for ecology, or for, care of nature. I participated once in an activity developed by an NGO, where not only once, several times, where you would just come we'll just go to a park and clean the park, help them cleaning the park. And so I did that on several occasions, and there were people asking us why we were doing that. And when we tried to explain that, this was for everybody because it's a park open to everybody, they were saying, yes, but there are people paid for that. Mm-hmm. So I think if you have developed the sense of being part of something which we all share, mm-hmm. then generosity is something natural. It is really something you do for the benefit of all, of the planet and everybody. And when talking about this, is maybe more difficult when we talk about relationship with others, because if someone is behaving maybe as we said before in a nasty way, then it's difficult to be generous. Or if I'm upset, it is difficult to be generous. But that's when maybe we need to remember that, as you said, we don't know what triggered the person, why this person acted in such a manner. And if we think that maybe, a defensive action or a defensive behavior comes with fear and with a sense of weakness, then we can be more generous, because we are conscious that there has been some weakness in that behavior, and it helps. I mean, that's what I use when I try to not take things personally, and to remain with an open heart.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominique. Okay, so I think I basically shared most of the things that for me are behind the scenes, but I will put it in here because I had written it out for myself. So I will put it in the chat. And the only thing maybe that was left to share really was cooperating with the pure intentions of another person. So where I'm able to see the pure intentions, and that's what I cooperate with, rather than with something else that they are doing which might be damaging for them and for other people around. So I find that keeps my spirit and my heart open and generous. So I will just put that in here, and then just we're going to have a brief meditation now, and just the thing that I feel, as I mentioned before, is that in order to be generous, I think we need to fulfill ourselves. That the original quality of the soul or the self is love. And generosity is born through that energy of love. So we need to fulfill ourselves with this state of being of love. And I think that we need that in order to be able to be truly generous. Because to be generous takes a lot of strength, truly generous. And one of the ways, of course, that we use in meditation is through the connection with the Supreme, whom we can consider to be the source of love. And so it's very simply just stabilizing the self in that original quality of the self, which is love, connecting with the source, the Supreme, and absorbing that. In a sense, we don't have to do anything else, really, I feel, is in order to fill ourselves with love. And then the application of that is in many, many millions of different ways, which we all, which are unique to each of us. But in a sense, it's that absorption of that pure, powerful love, you know, and to stabilize the self in that state. So we're going to have now just a few minutes of meditation, and I will see if I can share some music. But anyway, in the meanwhile, please find a comfortable position. Take a deep breath, and and just let your whole body relax. And as I feel all the muscles becoming comfortable, I can turn my attention inwards. And I come into that sacred space where I can stabilize myself in my original nature of love. Just as I am a being of peace, I am a being of love. What is this energy of love that is so fulfilling, strengthening, expanding the abundance? There's enough for what's needed. I tune in to the vibrations of pure, original love. And as I tune in, I begin to absorb also from the Supreme Source, the being who is always in the abundance of love. And as I tune in, I too begin to resonate with the same vibrations, with the same energy. I am love. And I take a deep breath, knowing that whenever I choose to, I can tune in to my original quality of love. It is from this love that generosity is born. And then gently, when I'm ready, I guide my attention to my surroundings. So thank you very much for your sharings and your presence. And I wish you a wonderful afternoon.
The same to you, Radha.